Well, chapter 47 of the book of Jeremiah, this chapter is going to talk about another nation that Jeremiah is giving a prophecy for. This is the nation of the Philistines. So these are the neighbors. If you think of Judah and Jerusalem and that area is where they lived, the Philistines lived in what we would call today Gaza. So the place where the Palestinians are right now in Gaza, that's the ancient area of the Philistines. In that area, it's not literally the same exact spot, but it's kind of around that area basically. So this is a revelation that Jeremiah gets to the Philistines about them and what's going to happen as Babylon marches down with them. So verse 1, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet against the Philistines before that Pharaoh smote Gaza. Okay, now this may reference actually a battle that happened around 601 BC. So after Carchemish, after Egypt dealt a strong blow against Babylonian forces, they may have taken over Gaza while the Babylonians regained their strength. We don't have enough evidence to prove this though, but that's a possibility. Remember, around 601, Egypt came up to help Judah as Babylon marched down basically, okay? As Egypt went up to do Carchemish and things, Josiah fought against them and then lost, and then his son Jehoiachin took over and he was more pro-Egyptian. So they kind of left him in power, and then Babylon marches down basically, and Jehoiakim is gone. His son Jehoiachin takes over for a couple months, then Babylon takes him captive and captures him. Egypt was there to help a little bit, but then got pushed back basically. And on their retreat, they basically took out the Philistines and pushed against them. About that, around that 601 time frame, basically. So verse 2, thus saith the Lord, behold, waters rise up out of the north, and shall be an overflowing flood. It's that same waters metaphor, flooding from Babylon's army is going to flood the area, and shall overflow the land and all that is therein, the city and them that dwell therein, and then the men shall cry, and all the inhabitants of the land shall howl. At the noise of the stamping of the hoofs of his strong horses, at the rushing of his chariots, and at the rumbling of his wheels, the fathers shall not look back to their children for feebleness of hands. They're going to be very afraid as Babylon is marching in. Babylon's a formidable army. And as they march through, everybody's going to be panicking. Even as Egypt's retreating and taking out Gaza and going that way, they're worried. They're worried about with Babylon marching down and Egypt is trying to fight. What a crazy time to be alive with several major armies going against each other, like right around you. Can you imagine growing up that way or living in that kind of a society? I mean, man, that'd be hard. Verse 4, because of the day that cometh to spoil all the Philistines, and to cut off from Tyrus and Zidon every helper that remaineth. For the Lord will spoil the Philistines, the remnant of the country of Caphtor. Now, interesting, Tyrus and Zidon are Phoenician places. These are on the coast of the Mediterranean, more in like northern Africa area. But they will be attacked first, then the Philistines second. So Tyre actually what I think was north of Judah, up that way, I think somewhere up that way. And so they're along the coast. They're going to be attacked and destroyed, and then the Philistine area is going to be next, basically. Now, this is Sennacherib, when he was the king of Assyria marching through, he did this. He hit these areas, basically. So let's see, Caphtor. Now, this is interesting. This is identified as the home of the Philistines. It often is associated with Crete and the Aegean Isles, where many groups came from around the 12th and 11th centuries. Ramses III in 1188 BC kept them from advancing much further than the coastal areas in Palestine. So there are ancient people that grew up that were living around the area of Crete, okay, probably even Minoan groups as well, that they think that's where the Philistines came from. They came down from the sea, but Egypt forced them out a long time ago. And so they couldn't go any farther, so a group of them settled in the area near Jerusalem that we would call Gaza, and that's where the Philistines ended up dwelling. And we've heard a lot about them with King David, the attacks and destruction of with Judah and the Philistines with King Saul and King David back then as well. So that kind of gives you a little bit more history behind these people as well. Now, verse 5, it says, "Baldness is come upon Gaza. Ashkelon is cut off with the remnant of their valley. How long wilt thou cut thyself?" So these are baldness, hair, and beards were seen as signs of power and influence. And so that's why you grew big beards. The men would grow big beards. That was a sign of their influence and their power. So being bald means no hair, so no power or influence. And being cut off and cutting yourself, self-cutting ideas, these are signs of mourning, basically. So the people are in mourning. The Philistines are in mourning as these armies are fighting. This most likely needs to be translated where it says, "Wilt thou cut thyself?" Let me talk about valley. Ashkelon is cut off with the remnant of their valley. This most likely needs to be translated as strength, the remnant of their strength, not valley. This verse can show a connection between the older giants who seem to have some remnants in the Gaza area. The Anakim lived in the area before the Israelites moved in. So this is where Goliath comes from. There were a group of people that were known as giants. If you go back to the stories around Moses' time when they snuck the spies into the land of Canaan. They looked around. That was one of the problems they saw was there's a group of people over here that are giants. There's no way we'd ever win these people. And so they mingled with the Philistines, these people from Crete, and that's where Goliath and his family, this whole idea comes from, basically. It's these giants. So they'll be cut off from their strength. Basically, this nation will not survive. And then the third line there, "How long wilt thou cut thyself?" They're harming themselves. They are making themselves it even harder for themselves to be successful at this. They're hurting their own efforts, basically. Now, verse 6, "O thou sword of the Lord, how long will it be ere thou be quiet? Put up thyself into thy scabbard, rest and be still." So this is interesting because this is talking about God, again, playing a major role in these battles and in the outcome of these battles, basically. So this destruction is what caused Jehoiachin to proclaim a fast in Jerusalem, in fact. Even though Jehoiachin was not a follower of Yahweh, he put a fast in place to pray to the gods that they believed in to get help, basically. This is when Baruch read the scroll from Jeremiah that got them into trouble. So if you remember when he read the scroll to the princes and the people, and they took it to the king, and the king cut it up into pieces and burned it. That's around this battle time frame, basically, that was happening. Verse 7, "How can it be quiet, seeing the Lord hath given it a charge against Ashkelon, and against the seashore? There hath he appointed it." So this prophecy was fulfilled in, Thompson says this in his book, about 604 BC by Babylon, when they were marching through 604 to 601 time frame, basically. Now, a letter was found at Saqqara, which is Memphis, and written in, not Memphis in Tennessee, Memphis in Egypt, just to be clear. The capital of Egypt back in these days was around Memphis, so it's just outside of Cairo a little ways. This was written in Aramaic by Adon, king of Ashkelon, to the Pharaoh, advises that Babylonian troops had advanced to Aphek. Adon besought the help from Pharaoh Necho. Receipts discovered at Babylon refer to sons of the king, seamen, and others from Ashkelon. Other receipts in the same batch refer to Yaukin, Jehoiachin of Judah, and his sons. At some undefined period, therefore, captives were taken from Ashkelon. At Ashdod, not far away, excavations have revealed a layer of destruction at the end of the 7th century and may point to the same campaign. So we do have some archaeological evidence of the possibility of what this chapter is talking about as Babylon marches through and takes out the Philistines and that area as well on their conquests. So pretty interesting as these happen. Let's jump over to the next chapter of Jeremiah to see the next group of people, the next neighbors to Judah that Jeremiah is going to prophesy about.